Welcome to Singapore Property Talk Law. Before we jump into the details today, make sure you like this deep dive and definitely subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss any of the latest ones. So today we're doing a deep dive into something pretty specific, actually, a unique property challenge right here in Singapore. It's really gone beyond just, market stuff, economics. It's become a real community concern. We're focusing on Tanjong Pagar Plaza, or TPP, and this long-standing issue with its shop mix and, importantly, suspected vice activities.
That's right. Our mission today really is to unpack this whole situation for you. We want to understand why TPP, which is, a key HDB mall right in the center, why it's facing this particular problem. We'll look at what people are seeing on the ground, the scale of it, and then, crucially, break down the pretty complex strategy that politicians and agencies are putting forward to try and fix it. It's multi-year, they say. This isn't just about, property values. It's about the social fabric of the place.
Okay, let's unpack this then. This refresh effort, it sounds quite intense. It's being pushed by the local MP, Foo Cexiang. He's basically said, enough is enough. So what are the actual concerns? What's driving this? What are people seeing there?
Well, the absolute core issue is saturation. Just too many of the same type of business. We're talking about a really high concentration of beauty parlors, nail salons, massage places, and there are strong community allegations, concerns that some of these are essentially fronts for vice. This saturation, it just casts a shadow over the whole shopping center's reputation.
Right, saturation. And I saw there were some actual checks done, physical counts. It's not just a perception thing. The numbers back it up.
Oh, absolutely. The numbers are quite stark, actually. On the ground floor, where you'd expect your everyday shops, checks found about 17 units doing beauty or nail care, plus another 4 doing massage services. So out of roughly 60 open units, it's over a third right there.
Over a third on the ground floor.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it gets even more pronounced upstairs. On the second floor, out of maybe 30-something units operating, around 20 of them, so a clear majority, were listed as hair, beauty, or massage parlors.
20 out of 30-something. Okay, that is really concentrated. How does that actually affect people living there day to day? I mean, it's an HDB estate, lots of families.
And that's exactly where the social concern really bites. You see it in the details. Sources mention things like an employee at a food stall saying it's just common, seeing older men going into these parlors and observing some of the female employees actually sort of actively trying to solicit men walking past, inviting them into the shops. It creates an environment that, frankly, makes parents feel uneasy. That's the word used.
Uneasy. And that's critical because TPP isn't just shops, right? It's meant to be a community hub.
Exactly. And the problem is really amplified because of the kids. There are at least 4 preschools and tuition centers actually located inside TPP. Some are even on that second floor, the one with the really high concentration we talked about, literally surrounded by these salons sometimes. So parents can't really avoid exposing their children to this kind of atmosphere, and that puts immense pressure on everyone.
Yeah, you can see why. And this is where it gets really interesting from a property and business perspective, too. The MP, Foo Cexiang, he pointed out that these alleged vice activities, they tarnish the image of the whole shopping center, not just those specific shops.
That's a crucial point. The reputational damage hits everyone. It affects the viability of all the legitimate businesses there, the ones trying to run a normal shop or eatery. It can turn away customers, especially families, if they feel uncomfortable. And that makes it really hard to attract new, maybe more desirable tenants like good F&B places or regular retail. So if people avoid the plaza, it hurts the very businesses residents rely on.
Okay, so the problem seems really clear, the impact too. Why is it called a long-standing problem? Why has it been so hard to fix over the years? This must get into the structural stuff, right? The regulatory side, the economic...
That's exactly.
Yeah.
This is why it's not a simple fix and why they're talking about such significant measures now. It goes back decades, really, caught in this trap. 2 main things: how the shops were originally leased and the economic reality of the place.
Okay, let's start with the history. The leases. Why does HDB have, as they say, limited regulatory levers? Isn't it an HDB mall?
Well, yes and no. The core issue goes back to the 1990s. Back then, HDB actually sold off a lot of the shops in TPP on very long 80-year leases. Unlike newer HDB malls, where HDB often stays the landlord and manages the tenant mix directly, here they sold the ownership for 80 years. So when they did that, HDB gave up most of the day-to-day control a landlord usually has. The shop owners effectively became private landlords themselves.
I see.
Yeah.
So these individual owners hold the asset for 80 years. HDB can't just step in and say, you can't rent to that type of business anymore. They lost that direct control.
Precisely. Their power to, curate the trade mix, as they call it, is severely limited for those units. And this lack of control runs headlong into a tough economic situation. TPP apparently suffers from relatively low footfall, at least compared to the big, shiny malls nearby. When you have low foot traffic, your typical business, say a bookstore, a simple family cafe, maybe a hardware shop, they often can't make enough money to pay really high rents.
But I guess certain other businesses can afford higher rents, even with low footfall, which creates a difficult dynamic.
That's the economic trap. The private shop owners naturally want to get the best possible rent for their asset, maximize their yield. And it turns out that only a fairly narrow range of businesses can generate the kind of cash flow needed to pay those higher rents in a low footfall environment. Historically, and this is the issue, massage places, some beauty salons, especially allegedly those involved in vice activities, they fall into that category. They can afford to pay more, so the market sort of pushes owners towards these higher paying but sometimes problematic tenants.
Okay, so you have the lease issue limiting HDB control and the economic pressure favoring certain tenants. Then there's the enforcement problem, right? The police do conduct raids.
Yes, they do. We know raids have happened. Recently, and historically too, there were reports of arrests back in 2017 in the area, for instance. But this highlights the loophole, or maybe the limitation, of just using enforcement.
How so? What's the limitation?
It often creates kind of revolving door situation. When the police raid and find illegal activity, the action is usually taken against the individuals involved, the masseurs, maybe the manager or operator of that specific business. But crucially, the sources point out that the shop owner, the person who owns that 80-year lease and is collecting the rent, they're often not directly implicated in the vice operation itself.
Right, so the operator takes the hit, maybe gets shut down, but the underlying asset owner, the landlord, is okay. They can just find someone else.
That's often how it plays out. The shop owner can simply terminate the lease with the problematic operator, perhaps after the raid, and then find a new operator. And given the economic pressures we just discussed, guess what kind of business is likely able to afford the rent again? Often it's a similar type of establishment. So the business might change its name, get a new license holder, but the fundamental trade type and the associated social problem can just return. It's built into the structure.
Okay, that paints a pretty challenging picture. Decades of leases, economic pressure, enforcement whack-a-mole. So given all that, what can they do? MP Foo Cexiang's strategy, the enough is enough plan. It sounds like it has to go beyond just more raids. What are the actual levers they're trying to pull?
It really is a multi-pronged approach involving several big players. The MP has met with the police, HDB, the local traders association, the town council. They seem to be focusing on three main strategies, three big levers to try and break this cycle for good.
Okay, what's the first lever? Sounds like it involves regulation, maybe trying to stop these places setting up in the first place.
Exactly. It's about being more proactive. They're asking the Ministry of Home Affairs, MHA, and the police to look into strengthening the upfront regulatory controls. So instead of just reacting after vice is suspected or found, the idea is to make it much harder for these specific types of businesses, the ones causing concern, to even get the necessary licenses or approvals to operate within TPP to begin with, sort of tightening the gate before they can enter.
Right, trying to filter them out earlier. Okay, that makes sense. What's the second lever? This sounds like the big one, tackling those old leases.
This is probably the most significant and potentially costly part of the strategy. It's using lease buyback. Basically, the MP has formally asked the Ministry of National Development, MND, and HDB to seriously consider buying back those 80-year leases from the current private shop owners.
Buying back private commercial leases, that sounds expensive and quite a major step for the government to take.
It is. It's a very significant financial intervention, no doubt about it, but it signals that perhaps the long-term social cost and the community impact have reached a point where they outweigh the financial cost of buying back control. The ultimate goal is clear. Get HDB back in the driver's seat as the direct landlord for these units. Once HDB owns them again, they have the power to properly curate the trade mix, as they put it. They can actively bring in tenants that serve the community's needs and improve the mall's atmosphere. This wasn't just a casual suggestion either. It was formally raised as a parliamentary question, which shows the level of seriousness.
Wow, okay. Regaining control to reshape the tenant mix, that seems key. And the third lever, does that involve the people actually working and shopping there?
Yes, that's the ground-up component, working with the community and existing businesses. The TPP Traders Association is reportedly on board with the need for change. They seem to agree that a better, more diverse mix of shops would actually benefit all businesses by attracting more people, more footfall. So the plan includes working with the association to actively identify and bring in new types of businesses. They specifically mention looking for lighter F&B outfits, cafes, maybe snack places, things that would diversify what's on offer and make the plaza more appealing to families and the general public again.
Okay, so tighter upfront regulation, the potential major step of lease buybacks, and actively curating a better mix with local support. It sounds comprehensive, but also complicated
Yeah.
and probably not quick. What's the time frame we're looking at here?
Yeah, the MP was quite clear on managing expectations about speed. He explicitly warned everyone that this kind of transformation will take several years. It's not an overnight fix. Things like negotiating lease buybacks, they go down that route, attracting the right kind of new tenants, implementing new regulations. All that takes time. But I think the key message for you, the listener, is the sense of determination. It seems all the main stakeholders, government agencies, local representatives, traders are aligned now. They're committed to seeing this through, however long it takes.
Right. It really does highlight a fascinating challenge, doesn't it? These older HDB commercial properties, especially where long leases were sold off, it creates this complex knot of market forces, historical decisions, and community needs that's really hard to untangle without some pretty bold moves.
It absolutely does. And this idea, the strategy of government potentially buying back private commercial leases, it's a powerful tool, maybe one of the few they have left, to tackle these kinds of deep-seated social issues in mature estates. It really leaves you, the listener, with a big question to ponder, doesn't it? How do authorities find the right balance? On one hand, you have the rights of private landlords who bought an asset and are, understandably trying to get the best rent they can, maximize their yield. But on the other hand, you have this very real, very urgent community need for a safe, positive environment, especially when there are kids, preschools, right in the middle of it all. Where do you draw that line? That's the real property puzzle here, I think.
That is definitely something to think about, a really tricky balancing act. Well, we hope you found this deep dive on Singapore property talk law insightful. If you did, please do remember to like the deep dive and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next analysis. We'll catch you next time.